Hey folks, I'm Pete Collins, and today I'm going to talk to you about shot shaping and what it's all about and why you might want to add some extra shots to your bag. We're going to talk all about it right after the intro. Okay, real quick, shot shaping, what is it? It really is taking your discs that you have and making them fly maybe a little bit different from their natural tendency. For instance, I have an Axiom Pyro here, which is overstable. So if I throw a right-handed backhand and throw it flat, it's going to want to dive to the left. It's overstable. Then I have an Axiom Hex that if I throw it backhand, straight, flat, it's going to want to travel mostly straight at the basket. It's going to fly nice and straight. And then I have an MVP uplink. If I throw it flat, it's going to go out and it's going to want to turn to the right. Now everything I'm going to talk about from a right-handed backhand throw. But this applies to forehands as well. You're just switching to the other side of the body. You don't need a forehand disc and a backhand disc. Any disc can be used for either one of these. Now some tend to operate a little bit better for your type of throw, but you could use this Pyro for both a backhand and a forehand. Just like you could use the uplink the same way, backhand and forehand. So I'm going to discuss just simply a right-handed backhand, but you can now flip that in your mind if you're left-handed or if you're throwing forehands, it works the same way. The principle's the same. Once you understand the characteristics of the disc, you can then start to shape the shots that you need with the knowledge of how the disc is going to react. Okay, so now I'm going to demonstrate, and I'm not going to try to crush these, but I'm just going to throw these nice and flat right out there. Straight to the basket and then fade off to the left. Now the hex. Straight, straight, straight. Now the uplink. I threw that a little like this, but pretty flat. You get the idea. It's going to turn back to the right. All right, let's break them down one disc at a time. Now, I'm just using these discs as examples. So whatever disc you have, once you understand what they want to do, you can start to shape different shots with it. So I'm going to start with the hex because it's the most neutral. Basically, if I throw it flat, it's for the most part going to fly pretty flat. Now, because I'm a right-handed thrower, the spin of the disc is going to want it, as it finishes, it's going to want to naturally pull it a little to the left. So straight flyers will go pretty straight, but often they will end a little bit to the left unless you go with something like the uplink that's going to want to pull it over even farther to the right. But so we're just going to use this one as a neutral example. And so what that means is it's great that I can put it on any line. Like I can throw it flat, or if I throw it like this on angle, it should just hold that angle and not do a lot of maneuvering around. That's both good and bad. Let's say I want to go around something, but I accidentally tweak it over a little too much. What's going to happen is it's not going to fight back to the left. It's just going to curl over, die, maybe turn into a roller. Great if you want a roller, but if that's not what you're planning, that can be death to you. So understanding that the neutral disc is pretty much going to fly how you put it on line. So that means you've got to have good disc control out of your hand so that you can make sure that you've got it right on line with what you need to do. Same thing on a forehand. If I do that, I'm going to need to make sure I throw it nice and flat, or whatever angle I'm going to put it on. It's not going to do a lot of maneuvering around. That's a great disc to start to learn to shape shots because you now have to be precise with your throws to get where they need to go. Sometimes when you use other discs, they can kind of mistake or mask your mistakes by just their stability or what they're doing. You don't really know how well and how crisp you're throwing. When you throw a neutral disc, it's really, if you throw a bad shot, it's usually up to you. Oh, one more thing. When we're talking about these things, sometimes you can get the same or similar flight from a couple different discs, but you would choose one over the other based on the wind. Because right now we've got a little bit of a tailwind, and so that means if I'm throwing something that's stable, it's going to want to be a little more stable. So I might need to not need that much stability, so I might need to throw something more neutral or understable just to counteract the wind wanting to drop it off to the left. Conversely, let's say we've got a headwind. If I'm throwing the uplink, which wants to flip over, into the wind, it's really going to want to flip over. The wind's going to take it and want to pull it over. So that's when I may need to throw something neutral that's going to actually flip over a little because of the wind, or something more stable that's going to fight that wind and hold it longer and not get turned over. So that's why understanding your disc is really going to make a difference in the shot selection, the shot shapes you make. Okay, so now I've got the hex here. It's nice and neutral. Let's say I want to get to that basket, but I want to get around a tree, but I want it to land soft. Okay, if I had my pyro, I know I could throw it around here and it would naturally curl back a little bit because of stability. So I could throw it a little lower and trust the stability to get it over there. With the hex, I've got to put all the touch and control on it. So I'm going to need to throw a little higher so that it gets time to get up and starts to flatten out and just plop at the basket. It's a much touchier shot, but if you can master it, you can really get some great runs at the basket without having to bomb by it. So understanding what a neutral disc does is a great base to start shaping some different shots. Now let's talk about a little more stable disc. And this is where a lot of people go, especially a lot of people are learning to play the disc golf using forehands. And a stable disc will handle forehands better than an understable disc or even a flat disc. You learn how to kind of give it that snap and get that curve. And so it's a really important disc, especially when you need to get around stuff. So what I was saying earlier, you know, a lot of times you just need to go up and around and dive back to the left. For instance, if I needed to really go around the corner and not go super far, I would just pull out my stable disc, throw it up nice and easy like this, and let the disc just naturally pull over there. But remember I said there's also the opportunity to throw some Anhyzer shots that are going to go up and then they're going to float out and they're going to start driving down towards the basket. We call it carry or pushing down the line. Now depending on how stable it is, if it's super stable, you could throw it over like this and in no time it's already turned and cut back this way. That's when you're in say a wooded area, you got to get around one tree and then you got to get around another tree. You need to make an S curve. That's where these come in really handy, is something overstable, even more stable than this, that you can throw around one tree and then let the natural stability shape the shot back and curl around the second tree and get over to the left. Whereas you have no shot straight ahead, you've got to use some stability to be able to maneuver the disc. Now here's the other thing that you might not think about with a stable disc like this. Let's say I have a tunnel shot, it's something low that I need to get straight for a little while and get out, but I still need some power to get through it. That's where if you can take a stable disc like this, overstable disc like this, and throw it low on a little bit of Anhyzer, what's going to happen is that initial speed is going to keep it on a nice straight line, hopefully for the length you need it down the tunnel, and then kind of straighten up and help push you down the line a little bit more. If you have a flat disc or an understable disc, if you try to put that power on it, you're probably going to roll it over and burn it into the ground. So a lot of times that stability is going to help you hug the ground and keep it off the ground instead of burning into the ground. So just another way that you need to kind of be aware of what can happen with a stable disc. And finally we get to the unsung hero of my bag. I love understable discs. And a lot of people don't really take advantage of them because they use a lot of overstable discs and maybe some flat discs, but they use the overstable disc for their backhands, and then if they need to go the other way, they use them for their forehands. But if you have to play in the woods or you have to make specific tight shots, the understable disc is your friend. Because what happens is, along with just throwing it regular, flat, and letting it pull over to the right, you also have the ability to do what's called the Anhyzer flip. And what that means is when I throw it, if I throw it down here like this, because remember this disc wants to turn over like this, if I throw it like this, it's going to pull up, and if I throw it right, it's going to pull up to flat, and then because it's fighting going this way because it wants to go that way, it's just going to hold straight and go nice and straight long down a tunnel. You'll see this a lot in the woods. These pros will come up and they'll throw something like this and it'll just pop up and ride right down the tunnel for a long way and doesn't crash off to the left. Because remember, an understable disc is trying to pull to the right even though the spin is trying to pull it to the left. That tension actually allows it to fly straighter longer. And so the other option, the other thing with it is that people forget is, once again, throwing around something and then letting it push farther down. If I put this on enough edge on Anhyzer, I can get it to still go hard to the left. But if I throw it a little bit less, I can get it to go up around. It's going to carry around, but then that flip up is going to pull it up and get it to sail farther down. So often we misjudge that we think we need to use a stable when we really could use an understable disc and get a little more movement out of it. I think the understable disc has the most shot potentials in it, just because of all the things you can do to flex it around, because you're working with both the right and the left attitude of it. It really is a great disc to start working on so that you can shape some amazing shots. So that's just a quick overview of kind of shaping shots, but I think the more you understand about what you can do with your discs, the better player you're going to be. That's our getting started with understanding shot shaping. Thank you so much. Hope this was helpful for you. If it was, please make sure to like and subscribe, and I hope to see you out on the course.